You ever stop and think about how those massive online services you use every single day just stay on all the time? We're talking about systems with thousands, even tens of thousands of computers, where parts are failing constantly. So let's get into it, because the way these huge systems handle failure is a total game changer.
You know, in the traditional world of computing, if your one main server goes down, it is a full-blown crisis. It's sirens, it's pagers, it's an all-hands-on-deck emergency to get that thing back online. The whole mindset is built around preventing failure at any cost. But when you're dealing with thousands of machines all over the world, that idea just completely falls apart. For these giant distributed systems, a single component failing isn't an emergency. It's just another Tuesday. It's completely normal, totally expected. So that's the big question, right? If pieces of the system are always breaking, or disappearing, or just getting disconnected, how does the whole thing, the website you're on, the app you're using, keep running like nothing's wrong? How does that work? Well, take a look at this. This chart shows a simple mathematical truth. The more parts you have, the more likely it is that one will fail. With 100 computers or nodes, you might be okay for a while. But once you get up to 1,000 or 5,000, the chance of at least one of them failing in a month gets really, really close to 100%. It's not a possibility anymore. It's a certainty. All right, so since we know we can't stop failures from happening, the entire design has to pivot. It's no longer about preventing failure. It's all about surviving it. This means you have to build these systems with a clear, automated plan for what to do the moment something goes wrong. And the big engineering idea that makes this all possible is called fault tolerance. This isn't some feature you just add on at the end. Oh no, it's a core design philosophy that basically says, look, we know things are going to break, so we're building this system from the ground up to handle that. So how does it work in practice? The most common way is actually a lot like an autosave in a video game. It's brilliant. When something breaks, you don't try to fix it right there and then. Nope, the system just goes back to the last known good save point and picks up from there, almost like the failure was just a tiny hiccup. Now, that autosave process, in the world of engineering, it has a formal name, checkpointing. Pretty regularly, the different parts of the system will pause for a split second, take a snapshot of their current state, everything they're working on, and save it somewhere safe. That snapshot becomes the recovery point. And there are basically two main flavors of this. With coordinated checkpointing, you can think of it like a conductor yelling freeze. Every single part of the system stops and saves its state at the exact same moment. This gives you a perfect, consistent picture of the whole system. The other way is non-coordinated. Here, every part just saves its state whenever it feels like it. If a crash happens, the system has to play detective, using logs of all the messages that were sent around to piece together a consistent timeline and figure out where to restart. Okay, so being able to recover is awesome, but that immediately brings up another huge question. How does this massive system, with all its thousands of moving parts, even know that one of its buddies has failed in the first place? Right? It's a critical point. You can't recover from a failure you're not aware of. How does one part of the system notice when another part has just vanished? The most popular method is actually beautifully simple. It's called the heartbeat. Just like a pulse, every single component is constantly sending out a tiny little message that just says, hey, I'm alive, still here. And other parts of the system are listening. If too much time goes by and they haven't heard a heartbeat from someone, they assume it's failed and kick off the recovery process. Now, heartbeats aren't the only game in town, of course. There are industry standards like SNMP, that's Simple Network Management Protocol, which offer a much broader toolkit for monitoring system health. It uses all sorts of signals, including heartbeats, but also things like timeouts and even direct alerts from the hardware itself to spot a huge range of problems. So, we can spot failures, and we can recover from them. That's great. But how do we know how good our system is at all this? How do engineers go from just building something that works to building something that is provably, measurably tough? Exactly. It can't just be a gut feeling, right? Yeah, this system feels pretty resilient. That's not gonna fly. In engineering, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So we absolutely need a formal way to define and quantify this whole idea of toughness. And the technical term for this is system robustness. It's not just some buzzword, it's a really rigorous framework that lets engineers be incredibly precise about how a system is supposed to behave when things go wrong. To really define robustness properly, an engineer has to answer 3 very specific questions. First, what behavior are we talking about? This means specifying the exact recovery algorithm, like checkpointing. Second, what is it robust against? Is it simple crashes? Is it network problems? Something else? And third, how robust is it? This is where the numbers come in, the specific metrics and limits that tell you exactly where the breaking point is. So let's pull all of this together. We've talked about this mindset of expecting failure, the tools for recovering and detecting it, and the framework for measuring it. But what does this all mean when the rubber meets the road?
If you take away just one thing from all this, let it be this. Building these massive, resilient systems requires a total mental shift. You have to stop trying to build something that will never break, and instead you start building something that can survive breaking all the time. It's a move from chasing perfection to engineering for resilience. And this really leads to the ultimate trade-off. Because with enough money and enough computers and enough engineering, you can get ridiculously close to 100% uptime. But every extra 9 of availability you add costs more and more. So the real challenge for engineers isn't just technical, it's economic. How much is perfect uptime really worth? Hey, if this explainer helped you get a better handle on the wild world of distributed systems, do us a favor and hit that like button, share it, and subscribe for more. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.